Welcome to the town hall meeting that we have going on. I appreciate everyone's everyone stopping by. If you can, please turn your camera on so that we can see you and we can have some interaction here. And just mute yourself as we're going forward. That would be greatly appreciated. This is the Financial Services Town Hall meeting starting here at 5 p.m. You'll see here on the screen that I'm hoping, can you all see that? Can I get a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Good. Okay, very well. If you'll see here on the bottom, there's this there's a link that I just went by that we can use to share and do a pre-assessment test, just gauging your involvement and your understanding of what we're going to be presenting today. Take the time to fill that out. I am going to go and also put that link in the chat, so
already
y'all
did
be able to.
for you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Melissa. You're awesome. Thank you so very much. So please.
Make sure to fill out the pre and the post assessments. That's also how we're taking attendance to get your information so that we can provide the recording and materials to all of you after the session. So definitely make sure to fill those out so that we can get the content over to you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I'm seeing some familiar faces, some new faces. I'm really glad that that's taken place. So welcome again. We'll get started here shortly. Let's add a couple more minutes before we get going. And we'll go from there. Just to let you all know too, if again, check the chat, we put an assessment link, a survey in the chat. Please fill that out at your earliest convenience as we continue with this. And also mute yourself, turn your camera on if you can, please. We greatly appreciate that. And we'll get started here in a moment. This another thing we need to make sure that we're very aware of it. This session is being recorded, so we want to make sure that you all are aware of that. This recording will be shared to you all, so it's important that you know that just from a FERPA standpoint, we want to make sure that we're very much being transparent in that as well. So just another minute and then we'll get started because we have a lot to do in the 45 minutes that we have going for us here. All right. And good. Okay. Okay. All good stuff. Excellent. Just one more minute. Just again, some housekeeping issues that we could have you please do for us. Please activate your camera if you're in a place to do so. Mute your microphone so that we don't get any cross feedback, buzzes and all that good stuff going on here. The pre-test assessment survey is in the chat. Please click on the link, complete that. That way we can take attendance for what's happening. There will be a post assessment. So I really would appreciate if you could do that for me. That way we can just get everyone all squared away here. We're going to get started in another minute. Okay. And everyone can see the presentation slide, the first slide. Is that all correct? Can everyone see that? Thumbs up, head nod. Excellent. All right. Well, in the interest of time, we're going to get started here. So as we go, just please and remember, this is a 45-minute session for you. We're going to be talking about financial services recruitment in this town hall. My name is Brian Whitmore. I'm the career coach for finance and real estate. I really do appreciate all of you being here, taking the time out to really look at what it is we're going to be doing in the next couple of months as it pertains to recruitment. Okay. So just as we go, just a couple housekeeping notes really quickly as well. Want to make sure your camera's activated because we want that type of engagement. We want that type of participation. Please keep yourself muted and complete the assessment as you see it. This next 45 minutes is going to be pretty quick pace. We want to make sure that we're getting through the information. However, this is your time as students to ask questions about what you see. Please use the chat to do that. A great colleague, friend, and director all-star Melissa Leffen is here. She's going to be the one making sure that we're attending to those questions as they come up. So put those in the chat. We will address them, whether that's in the moment or after you drop that question, but do rest assured that it's there. Secondly, this is being recorded. We want to make sure that this is a tool and a resource for you as students as we move forward. So as a result of that, we will make sure that we post this on our careers website. And then when we reach out to you for more follow-up, we'll have the recording. So if you need that, you can also reach out to us. We're going to cover a lot in this hour, so please use that chat function for those questions as we mentioned before, and we're going to get started. All right, so here we go. Here's our learning objectives. Here's what we're going to do in this next 45 minutes. The big things I have here for all of you have been bolded. They've been highlighted. We're going to talk about skills and strategy and understanding successful financial recruitment. We're going to talk about timeline and process, and you're going to leave with an action plan. That plan is going to be your own kind of plan to make. It's going to be something that you're going to need to really think about in terms of how you're going to best execute that plan and what it works best for you in terms of the areas of finance that you're going to be recruiting in. All right. These learning objectives and goals are concrete, but understand that the arena of recruitment can be fluid. So we're going to try our best using the knowledge and the information that we have at this current time to make sure that we're best informing you about what's happening. All right. So quick overview of our team, a light overview of our team. Again, I'm Brian, a career coach with finance and real estate. In attendance, we have Melissa Leffen, who's our Director of Career Engagement for the undergraduate program at the School of Business. Jamie Macias, who's our Director of Programming for the Finance Department. And then Brian Zaramba, who I believe may not be with us this evening, who is the Assistant Director of Employer Engagement. So that is just a portion of the entire team that makes up the entirety of our career engagement team. So just continue to understand and do that. Let's keep going here. So let's jump right into process and timelines for recruitment for financial services. It's very important that we understand how this journey is going to start for all of you. And I wanted to make a really good point about this because I believe that it's important about the endeavor that you're getting ready to take your steps into. It's going to take organization, execution, and planning. It's going to have to be able, you're going to have to be able to augment and change what you're doing and how you're doing it, because this is a strategic process that is intentional. And I want you all to very much understand that. The point I want to convey here is the point that the more intentional, the more strategic, and the more organized you are and tactical, and how you're going to move forward is going to progress to your outcome of either internship or career placement. Okay. And it all starts with you as students. Knowing your why and wow factor, being able to tell a compelling story, and to be able to know what your brand presence is, both on your professional documentation. When I say that, I mean resume, cover letter, right? And then your brand presence as it pertains to your electronic presentation, Handshake and LinkedIn, all right? So understanding your strengths and values and your skill sets, how you're representing those on the digital platform that I just discussed, and on the actual professional documentation platforms that we have. You really need to have a really good understanding of these wow and why factors, because you will be asked about them in the process. But more importantly, it's going to inform more about how you move forward in the process. It's going to inform more about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's also going to help really frame how you move forward. Okay. So please take the time to understand that and work through it. All right. So I like this infographic because it talks a little bit about what we're trying to achieve, which is at the bottom of the funnel there, internship or career outcome, right? And you'll see three kind of frameworks: interview readiness, professional documentation, networking, and strategic approach. If you funnel all those down, the result will be an internship or career outcome. Now, that we notice that there's not like a time. If you do this amount, this thing at this amount of time, or this step in this time frame, you will get this career internship outcome at the end of it. Quite the contrary. If you can continue to make sure that you are strategic in this approach, in this funnel, the outcome will take place. And really, just to touch on some of these really quick. what I want to bring to light is how well do you know yourself and how well do you know your skills and what's your brand? When people think networking, they look at networking like, I'm going to go out and network because I'm trying to build connections, which you are, but the building the connection piece is important. How are you building your network to frame it around the internship or career that you would like, and how can you best then use that network to your advantage to get advocates for internal processes or to inform your decision making? Okay, so knowing what you want to do in finance, where you want to do it in finance, or real estate, if that's your thing, or really any outcome, is going to matter how you approach that and what your documentation looks like. All right, so we'll go to the next slide here. So we're talking about a strategic approach, and I really want to bring to light what I mean when I say strategy. This really, I think, encompasses a lot of what I would love you all as students to really understand. They are all pieces of the same pie wedge. They all very much inform how you move forward, right? Starting at so the biggest circle that you see is an internship. But if we look at the nucleus of that circle, professional documentation, position description, fit, goals, values, and digital format, all at the basis of what we're trying to do here, right? If you can have those things set, the house that we're building on that foundation is solid. Then it goes next to who are your internship players? So who, what, where, when, and how in terms of industry. Is it investment banking at a bulge bracket or mid-market bank? Is it private wealth management? Is it corporate finance? Is it sales and trading? Where are you doing these things? Where are you trying to achieve the goal of getting to do these things? Who are the alumni advocates and the alumni that you're going to reach out to gain more industry knowledge and advocacy within that sector of finance? How do you build your network? What professional development have you done around that skill of trying to find that industry area of expertise in finance? How are you conducting your informational interviews? And then the advocates therein, and what events are you attending? And we'll touch on a lot of these as we go, okay? So I wanna make that clear that this isn't just the last time you'll see this. We'll kind of break these down, which leads to the big hole of the internship, right? And what I see a lot as a coach is we're missing steps. We're missing pieces of the whole. We're missing holes that happen. I have a lot of folks that might have the documentation down, but they don't have the process of the building the network, right? I have a lot of folks who might have the networking down and building that network, but they have neglected to look at their professional documentation, both digitally and physically. They all matter, but they have to be solid so that when you move forward, when you go for your strategic change and your understanding, it's not a matter of how much you have to implement or I have to completely change up the way that I'm doing this. It's more about, okay, I have the documentation set. I know what I want to do and where I want to do it and who my advocates are and who I'm going to reach out to. I know how to network and build that network and do the informational interviews. That will lead me to the internship. Okay. So as we go, just think about this and we'll touch on these as we continue. So this is an overview of the recruitment timeline for 21. All right. And I want to thank Melissa Leffen and Jamie Macias for really helping, and Brian Naramba here for really helping me kind of frame this. All right. So we're talking about financial services. I realize that some of the things that we're looking at here may not fall in the financial service realm, but we're looking at corporate finance and commercial retail banking to start the first 2 or 3 bullet points. In that, the first thing is they follow each other's timeline. All right. So think about it from that perspective. Career and info sessions and interviews, and then offers is the typical track we see. Career fair, info session, interview, and offer. The 80% of these companies hiring in the fall, and some of the industries that you see here hire in the spring. I think we all know that what's been going on globally with COVID, that might change that timeline a bit. And I think we're going to see very robust recruitment starting in February with some of the boutiques going all the way into March, April, in terms of financial services. So that's what you can see here. Wealth management is the same timeline as above. You just want to make sure, again, you know what you want to do in finance and where you want to do it. That way you understand what timeline and what time frame you need to work in, right? Very important that we understand that. It's very important that we make sure that not only do we understand what we want to do, but where we want to do it and how we're going to best move in those areas. All right. So I think that that's a pretty good thing to make sure that you're well aware of. So moving forward, financial services, investment banking, sales and trading, research, asset management, and wealth management. There are some caveats to what we're looking at here, okay? So as I alluded to before, some of these financial institutions in this service area are going to start their recruitment early based on who they are. Midwestern firms, some boutiques are going to start that recruitment very early in the process, whether that be in late February or early March, right? So, and with the IB process, the investment banking process, typically we see students who are sophomores starting to recruit in the investment banking space for, it would be the spring of their sophomore year for internships in their junior year summer, okay? These applications are rolling. They are staying open until the till the applications close or the need is closed, and then if there's more of a need, then they'll open back up and another process will happen. So understanding that is important as well, because if we don't understand that, if you think an application process is closed and you're not aware of the timeline and it reopens, you might miss an opportunity. All right, so I think it's very important that we know that, and that you take advantage of knowing when these are. You're going to use Handshake for this. There's other outlets you can use, Glassdoor, and you can kind of use some other resources there. But Handshake is what we use in the business school to ensure that we're recruiting in the way that we need to recruit. All right.
Ryan, can I jump in real quick on just
Certainly.
to expand on rolling applications, because I know we get
Yes.
a ton of questions from students on this.
Yep.
So with rolling, that means that they're reviewing applications as they come in, starting from that first day, and they will start extending offers, you know, as soon as they get through that first round of interviews. So as you're thinking about when you want to apply to these jobs, the best guidance we can give is you want to apply as early as possible, but when you're ready. Because the other thing with rolling applications is that means that if you submit an application, you could be invited to start the interview process like within a week or two of submitting that resume. So you want to make sure that once you submit, you are interview ready to be able to be successful. But know that the longer you wait, the fewer opportunities there are, because they're filling those roles as you go. And then I know I saw a question in the chat about July 1st is the date for a lot of these banks. There will be some banks that will open their applications earlier than that. A lot of times we're seeing that with some of the boutiques in the middle markets. So for those roles, they will start interviewing and filling positions probably earlier than July 1st, but the bulk of those things tend to open around that July 1st timeline. So hopefully that clarified, but we can handle more questions in the chat too. I know it's confusing.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa, for that. And I think that's a very good point to make, because what it's going to do is inform how you're going to continue in that strategy and that follow-up with what you're trying to do and where you're trying to recruit. All right. So remember that if you have more questions, please utilize the chat so we can make sure that we're addressing those. So when we're looking at this, we're talking about process. And I like this graph, but I want to explain it, because I think when you look at this, it's very linear. It's very like, okay, networking, application, hire view, first, second round, super day. In an ideal world, and with everything that we have going on, that very well may be how this works. The ideal process is we start with that networking component, because we know what we want to do and where we want to do it in finance. We're looking at the application. When is it open? When does it close? Am I in that window? Can I network before I get that application in? Will you then be invited to a hire view? And we're typically seeing hire view just because of our pandemic situation. Firms and banks are just using hire view or Go Big 10 Hire, or they're using Google Hangout or Zoom to be able to have that first round interview in a virtual setting. I don't know if you've ever had a hire view interview. If you haven't, it's a simple, very tasky kind of oriented process where you're going to get a prompt or prompts about certain situations or questions. You'll then be prompted to answer those questions within a time frame, record the answer, and then submit your package of questions to be reviewed by the panel that's going to review them. And that's how hire view works. First and second round interviews, there might be one round, there might be two rounds. It just depends on the firm and what they want to do, or the bank. And then going to the super day, which typically, again, virtual, might be in person, but it's going to be more virtual. Here's the caveats with all of it. And I think this is what is important to note here, is that we look at networking and application. Ideally, we hope that you'll be able to do some networking in the places and spaces you want to work and where you want to work within finance before the application process starts. Now, that's not to say that that's how it's going to roll every time. It might be where you'll see a job posting and you have to start that application process because it might close and do the networking on the back end, right? But typically this is kind of how we see this work across. And the really big thing I want to point out to here is the building of the network. I do believe that that is the best thing that you can do in the financial services realm, is to try and figure out where you want to do and what you want to do it, but more importantly, who are you going to talk to about learning the industry knowledge that you need to gain the advocates and alumni champions in that realm or in that area of finance, so that they can then advocate for you in this process. And that might happen before or after the application. All right. So knowing this really helps, because a lot of this is going to be self-starting and an understanding of how you're going to prepare for all of this. What strategy are you going to use in this process? How are you going to stay informed? How are you organizing your thoughts? Where are you in the application and networking process in all of the applications that you will fill out? So having some sort of system to be able to understand that really does make the big difference. Because I think what will happen is, as you go through this process, you'll start to see that you might be, that you're not lacking, but you might have to augment or change where you're putting the most attention in order to get through the process. All right. Is there any questions or anything we can address as we go forward, Melissa? We still looking pretty good. Good. Okay. So as you're going through your process, remember this chart, and ideally this is how you want that to look. All right. So in that process, the interview portion, behavioral and technical interview questions. We'll go through the behavioral side first, then we'll go through the technical side. And I'm here to tell all of you that the technical preparation that we're going to talk about in this session is high level. You can really get into the weeds with technical interview questions, and there's a lot of resources out there on how you can start to prepare for those. We'll go over those in a little bit. Behavioral is going to be a why this firm, why this industry. Tell me about a time when type questions. I want you to remember that STAR method: situation, task, action, result, as you're talking to your employer or your potential employer. Think about what it is they're asking, why they're asking it, how you addressed it, and what was the result of how you addressed it. More importantly, I think when I'm thinking about how the students that I've worked with and the experiences that I've had, that tell me when or tell me why finance, tell me why finance at finance at BMO, why, finance at Bear, whatever it is, that question is the one I see students oftentimes have the biggest problem with. Because again, knowing yourself, knowing the actions that you need to take, knowing how you got to be where you are now, and what informed your decision making to try to apply for this position at this place, right? And it doesn't need to be one that is overly rehearsed. It doesn't need to be one that is deep, but there needs to be some thought process in it and some tangible action, so that when you're talking and when you're saying it, it makes sense to not only you, but it's tangible and it's understandable and digestible to those you're talking to, right? So it's really important that you know that. Know yourself, know your why and your wow, and know your skills and values and how that informed where you are today. Taking notes during this process is critical, because not only do you want to understand what you're being asked, you also want to make sure that you're answering the question. It shows some dedication to what you want to do and making sure that you're answering the right question the right way, right? The same thing applies with the technical interview questions. So think about this as a process. You hear that question for technical interviews. Take a moment and think about that question. What are they asking and why are they asking it, right? Think about why it is that the question's being asked as it pertains to that situation or that job or that internship, and demonstrate that line of reasoning as you execute the answer to that question. If you don't know the answer, don't make it up. You're sitting in a room full of experts in finance, whether that's in recruitment for a position or whether that's in how or what they're going to, or what they need to know to get the job done, which is filling this internship position, right? So if you don't know the answer, say that. Don't make it up. Use a structured approach, because here's the rub. If there's an understanding of how you got to the end result, I think that matters as much as the right answer. If there's process and logic and consistency in how you're answering the question, if there's a way that you can formalize your questions and your answers so that you know the process there and you can show that, that's really, really good, because it shows that you have that process thinking, that there's intentionality as to how you and why you're answering the question the way you are, right? So think about that as you're going forward with your technical interview questions and your behavioral-based questions. There's a ton of stuff out there to really work on this. You can quite simply go to Google and type in behavioral-based interview questions. You can go and type in technical financial interview questions. That's okay to start. There are places like the Wall Street Oasis, Mergers and Inquisitions, Vault.com with the Vault guides, and Vault is VAULT, like Bank Vault. There you can really start to get more your hands on that, and there are some other, third-party preparatory work that you could do outside. So find what works best for you and what you can best grab and digest out of all of it, and then from there use that tool to work on your behavioral and technical skills. And also, we're here for you as a career engagement team, so use us because that's why we're here. All right, so it's fit based. You have to think about questions from the behavioral and a technical side. You're going to spend a lot of time in finance with the same people doing similarly the same things, a lot of time together in a group, maybe in a small group of 2 or 3, or on a small team. So it's more about, how do you fit? How do you work? What works well for you? How do you process? How do you use teamwork and communication? So think about those things. And as you can see, the 10% of the interview might be technical or maybe technical. So yes, understand and know what those technicalities are is based on where you're trying to recruit in finance, but really think more about that technical aspect as it pertains to fit. How do you fit well to be able to then use that technical proficiency to do the job, right? How do you navigate your conversations? How do you conversate? How do you do small talk? How do you work in a group? What's your work ethic like? How do you work well with others? How do you communicate? Think about those things as you're going through this, because I think that's where a lot of the mishap happens. It's really more about knowing that fit-based interview questions and the behavioral-based interview questions that fit together, right? And I want you to think about how you would respond to those questions. Finesse and robotic responses, and it all comes to your preparation and strategy. Okay, if you can think about what it is you're trying to posit in that interview, what are you trying to say in that behavioral question, and then after you think about that response, because you've worked on it, you've rehearsed it, you're rehearsing it not to memorize it and nail the question and memorize things line for line. It's more about, do you know the concept? Do you know how to talk about that answer? Can it be finessed in a way so that the individuals who are interviewing understand it? That's why the rehearsal matters. That's why you want to rehearse that. So it's not hard for you to generate an answer. It's more like, nope, you'd understand how this is going to fit for you and how you're going to answer the question because you've rehearsed it so much. And it's just going to come with preparation, time, and practice, whether that's with a friend, colleague, another student in a class, in a student organization. If you have to be a member of one, use those to your advantage, because I really do believe that's how you're really going to kind of ace that section of the interview. All right. So things to consider in prep. You need to articulate why you're interested in that area of finance, going back to the skills and values, know your story, and really think about your resume. Yes, as a professional document that shows your professional and academic rigor. Yes, that is what that document does. But it's more about, what are the skills and concepts behind each one of those bullet points? What skills did you use to complete that bullet point at that job, or at that other internship you've had, or in that student organization, or for that project for the class? And then think about those abilities and use those going forward. Talk about that, right? I really think that's important, because yes, you have those skills and abilities and they're listed there, but are you able to talk at length about how those skills and abilities fit with where you're trying to recruit? I think it's really important that we understand that. And also think about this in terms of resources as fact finding, not only about where you're trying to recruit and who you're trying to recruit with, but also the people and the places within that process. Again, going back to Mergers and Inquisitions, Wall Street Oasis, Vault.com, and LinkedIn, Investopedia. I really like LinkedIn, because if you're going to be given the individuals that you're talking to within the interview space, it would behoove you to go to LinkedIn and look at their LinkedIn profile. How long have they been doing the job? What's their background in their job? Do you have a connection that you didn't know about? Are they an alumnus? Have they been in the financial space? Have you talked to someone who might be connected to them? Not only are you trying to learn about this process of recruiting and finance, you're also trying to learn about who you're sitting in the room with to make connections, so that way the interview process is more conversational than it is. I'm going to use the word professional, but I don't want that to be misconstrued with the lack of professional with easygoing. What you want to be able to do is know as much as you can about the people who are sitting in the room, so that way you're able to fit your questions in with the audience that you're speaking to. And it's all out there. It's all out there. So go and use those resources to try and find it. All right.
Real quick, Brian,
Yep.
so in case those of you, if anyone's not monitoring the chat, I did just pop 2 links in the chat to some resources to help with interviewing. One, you can access the vault guides that Brian mentioned for free from our career engagement website. It's in the carousel at the top, so check that out. And then as you're prepping for interviews, Brian is obviously an amazing resource, but there is only one of him. So I also wanted to share that Travis Bradford is one of our career peer coaches who's actually going into banking and just went through this process last year. So he can do practice interviews with you. He can help you prep for technicals, behaviorals, help with resumes. So I included the link to where you can find Travis's availability on Handshake. Our other career peers are fantastic as well and have experience in finance, but Travis is going to be someone who's really, gone through and been successful in the process. So just wanted to call that out. I will continue to be dumping links and all the good stuff that Brian's talking about in the chat. So keep an eye on that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Melissa. And it's really important, and I want to make light of this because my background before coaching is in student affairs. So it's very important to me as a professional to talk about the student experience as it pertains to like higher education, right? I want you all to realize and know that we as professionals within our own team, with the career engagement team, within employer engagement, and within the finance department, we realize how hard this is. This is a very daunting and grueling task. I often say, if you've been in a coaching appointment with me, this is like having another 3-credit class on your docket, okay? So that's why we're trying to preach this strategy and this tactical approach, but also give yourself that space to be able to use the resources available to you because they're there to help this process in terms of its ease going forward. So I want to make that clear and make sure that we understand that. So we've talked a lot about networking, building a network, informational interviewing. What do you do when you start that, and how do you do it? A very important thing, and I want to make some notes there. So you're going to reach out. You're going to reach out to people. You're going to organize this in a way that makes sense to you. So who are you reaching out to and why? Did they respond to your email? Did they respond to your secondary email? And where do they rank in terms of your hierarchy of what you want to do and where you want to do it in finance? Number one, if they didn't respond to your email, should you reach out again after that second response? If you didn't get a response, do you need to find someone else to move on to, or do you want to try a third time with that person? If you try the third time, it's trying to find a new contact. Because remember, time is of the essence in this, especially as we're getting into an active recruiting season. So if they didn't respond to the initial one, give yourself the parameters to say, okay, I'm going to reach out one more time. If they didn't respond to the second one, maybe it's a third attempt, or you're just going to move on to the next one. Understanding that these persons that you're reaching out to are extremely busy individuals. They have their own lives, they have their own lifestyles, and they have their own responsibilities within their own jobs. So don't take it personal if they don't get back to you. They just simply might be very busy. All right. So think about that. And there'll be a good graphic coming up about how you can organize all of this. The idea for informational interviewing is so that you prepare a list of questions so that you understand who you're talking to and why. You're going to build rapport to make connections to gain an advocate. That's why we informational interview. That's why we network. We're building up our finance or real estate house so that it's as structurally sound as possible with the right information and the right people that help you build it. All right, so the things to remember: you could ask informational interview questions about the person's work experience, career successes. You could ask the individual, knowing now what you know, what would you tell your undergraduate self when you started? What tools can you use to be successful? What resources can you use to transition? Maybe you're going from internship to career. What tools can you use to understand that? How did they make a choice in their profession, right? And as you're doing these, remember that rapport building. Take notes, and we'll talk about the contact management system where you can dump all these notes and the contact information and when you contacted the individual. So you don't have to think about it. It's just a thing that lives and it's in your preparation so that you can go back to it and say, okay, I talked to Brian on this date about these things. Here's this follow-up conversation we're going to have in his contact information. All right. But it's very important that you understand when to continue to try to get that contact or when to say it's time to find a new one. All right. And I will say that it might seem like that's a lot. There might be a lot of people you reach out to, and that's okay. There probably will be a lot. Just know that the more people that you reach out to, make sure you diversify who that is. Don't just go to the top of the triangle and try to talk to the MDs or the higher ups. Maybe it's an associate first or an analyst and an associate, because they're so close to you in terms of where they are in terms of their professional career. Then you want to diversify that with maybe some leadership positions to get some of that perspective, right? Perhaps it's a senior who's at the business school right now who's going to be transitioning from internship to career. What was their process like? They have the student perspective that is very crucial to all of you as students because they've been through what you're about to go through. And I think that's one of the largest populations of people that we've missed in informational interviewing and networking are those students, okay? Especially those senior students. So use those to your advantage, all right? So the strategy here, alumni advocates to gain the industry knowledge so that we can all get in the ear of HR to make that decision. Here's what I want, here's why I want it, okay? So that's very much what I want you to think about. They're advocates for you to gain that knowledge, to talk to the recruiter. It's not that recruiters aren't vested in trying to fulfill these positions and to get these people in the right seats, but their job is to do that. Now, how they do that is based on their own style. But if you can talk to the people to understand how they can best work with that person as a recruiter and get those alums talking to the right people, that's what we're trying to aim for. And that's what we're trying to strategize for. All right. So talked about a lot. And I think this is where it all comes together, the contact management system. Now I'm going to show you in the next slide what that can look like. But again, this is going to be what works best for you. If it's a Post-it note, legal pad, Microsoft Word document, the back of your hand, I don't care. Just make sure that you use whatever system that you have. And you're quite simply what you're going to do is you're going to build a system of contact. Who was the name of the person in the organization? What was our contact information? And the highlights of your interaction and the date and your follow-up date. You want to put this and it lives somewhere. It lives in a document so that you can go back to it and you can prioritize who you want to reach out to next, who you want to reach out to after that, who you may not want to reach out to at all right? The great thing about that is this, the question I get a lot is, Brian, how do I, after the first informational interview and networking I've done, how do I reach back out again? And what do I say? And I say, great, good question. What you want to do is go back to your contact management system and you want to look at it and you want to say, okay, I talked to Brian from Goldman Sachs about investment banking on this day. He talked about the interview process, his process as an intern to a career, and how I can best make myself the best intern at Goldman, right? So that way, when you reach out to that person again, because you know when the last time you talked to them based on your system, you can say, hi, Brian, my name is Jane Doe. We talked at length about being an investment banker at Goldman Sachs, and I really like how we talked about points A, B, and C. So what we're doing is, again, we're planting that seed like, oh, yeah, I remember. I talked to Jane. Yeah, I remember that person, right? So that way, it kind of refreshes that contact, and you can continue moving forward in that building of your network and that understanding, okay? So you want to prioritize them, A, B, and C, as you see here, and then how those contacts work at each contact. So the top firm gets the most contacts and so on and so forth going down, right? And again, these numbers are arbitrary. They're not set in stone. Your top 5 firms, it might be 6 to 10 contacts. The middle ones might be 5 to 20. It might be 5 to 10. It might be 2 to 3. Your C firms might be 1 to 2. It might be 1. It might be none. I don't know. Do what's best for you. So you can see this is kind of a snippet of what that system might look like. I will say this first. That is not Danny Robbins' email. I changed it. So don't go trying to email Danny Robbins using that email, okay? So, but you can understand, look, you can see how this is all laid out. The firm, the contact information, the email, how you started and what you said, and your action steps. And I would add the next date for follow-up. When is that going to be? When are you trying to do that outreach again so that you understand when it is and what it is you want to say and when you want to say it? The great thing about this is this isn't really designed for you to, it's just designed for you to not have to think about it, because you can just put it all here. You can put all your notes here, and then it's just yours. And so that you understand that you know where to pick up where you left off, because you have a lot of things going on in your lives too. You're all very busy people too, between classes and student life, organizations, family, and all of those things. So that's why this is here, okay? We've covered a lot. I'm looking at the time. We're at about 5:40, which is right where we want to be. So what I want to do is put this link up here on our chat. And Melissa, if you would throw this in the chat, that'd be great. This is our post-assessment survey. This is, we took an assessment at the beginning of this. What do you know? Now we're taking the assessment at the end of this to see if we've achieved those learning objectives of what we try to reach out and what we've tried to do here in this event. So if you wouldn't mind, take the time really quick, use the link, go complete the survey, and then once it's done, you can use the raise your hand function that's available to you. If not, we'll take about 2 or 3 minutes, complete that, and then I'm going to go next into kind of the next steps and the tools that are going to be offered and the programs that are coming up by the career team and by the finance department about how you can start to really get your hands on some more in-depth, granular looks at recruiting. So take some time, do that assessment, and we'll give it like a minute or two. All right.
And as a reminder, this is how we're taking attendance to be able to share the slides. I just saw a question in the chat about that and the recording. So please make sure to complete this assessment so that we know that you were here and can get this information over to you.
Excellent. So we'll just take a real quick minute to do that. Thank you all for taking the time to do it as well. It really does help us inform how we're moving forward. Okay. Just one more minute. We'll start up here in another minute. If you could just do that assessment tool, that'd be great. All right. Excellent. So I'm going to advance the slide. That link is in the chat. So if you need that, please still continue to do it because I want to go forward and talk about next steps. We talked about an action plan. We got an overview of what it is, what financial services recruiting is. We talked about how to organize your thoughts, networking, informational interviewing, and the timelines that we know as we see them for financial services and finance in general in terms of internships. So what's next? So I want to explain these kind of bullet points that we see so that you're understanding of what they are and how you can use them to your advantage. The first one is Badgers Exploring Finance. That's an initiative that the finance department is in conjunction with collaborating with Letters in Science. So myself, Brian Zaramba from the assistant director from our employer engagement team are putting together some programming that you'll see on Handshake. Again, Handshake being the vehicle that's driving all of this, right? And it's going to be exploratory programming around the areas of finance. Right now, we're looking at having conversations with banks and firms who have multiple verticals within finance, whether that be like a Baird that might have private wealth, investment banking, and other avenues within finance. We're going to have a stock pitch kind of competition, but not in the form of competition, more about here's how we're going to explain how that competition might look using the Hawk Center and some members from the Capital Management Club. And then students within that session can look and kind of get some expertise as to how that would look. So if you did do a stock pitch later, you'd know how to do it. So that's the first thing. Second, Access Distributed, taking place February 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. The link is there for you as well. Very IB intensive program about understanding and breaking into the world of investment banking, but at a very granular level. We're really going to be able to get your hands on everything from the networking to the technical interviews, not just the preparation, but why firms ask the questions they do in technical interviews, how to network, how to break in, and not just from, high level folks within investment banking, but it's going to have that student touch because the Access Distributed Fellows who are UW students are going to be leading that. So they're going to have that perspective about knowing the student experience based off of their experience. And I think that's what's really going to bode well for all of you students. I want to make mention of the diversity programming within banking for persons of color and women. These are separate recruitment strategies that these banks use where you have days of discovery that normally would be in person, but they'll be virtual. You can search for those, and it's a great way to get your foot in the door to be able to continue that networking and then have access to potential internship opportunities. I will make light that there's a training opportunity coming. We're just working out the details. So, I want to, stay tuned for more information, but literally that's what it's going to be. It'll be a third party organization that will come in. It will be a capped allotment of students for this program, but it's going to be a high touch, very intensive training program about doing the job as it pertains to finance in the financial services sector by a third party. I'm really looking forward to it. We just have to make sure that we get the contractual things worked out. That way I can't share too much information, but I will tell you that you will see emails from myself, the finance department, our career team about how you can sign up for that, right? Mock interviews are happening right now. There's also going to be mock interviews that will be taking place at the end of February with the School of Business, and we're going to bring in alums where you can practice your interview skills and get the direct feedback from an individual you might see later down the road. But more importantly, you're going to get that feedback from someone who's been sitting in your seat to get that high touch about what you could do better, what you did well, and how you can best inform your decision making going forward. So there's that. We got the virtual career fair coming up next week, the 10th and 11th. Sign us on our live on Handshake. Make sure you're checking out who's going to be in the quote room. Find who you want to meet. Sign up for the information sessions and sign up for their one-to-one sessions. All right, you can see that as well. And the other thing I want to stress, and I think this is the one that gets missed a lot, and that's the events on Handshake. If you go to events on Handshake and start filtering by event, workshop, virtual session, coffee chat, there's so much going on. And I would encourage all of you to make sure you're checking that once a day, if not once or twice a day, or at least every other day, because there are oftentimes we have events that we post to that Handshake series of events that we learn about during the course of a workday that we might then put a link up that you'll be able to then check out and attend. And the great thing is you don't have to leave. You're right at your place, your home, wherever that is for you, or at school. You can attend these events anywhere, whether it's computer, mobile phone, whatever that is. All right. So please, please, please check Handshake for those events, because there are numerous ones, and it will be continue to add those on. Okay. So thanks for your attendance. Here's all the information about how you can get in touch with us. I want to point out we're on Instagram now. I know it's a thing. I can't believe I'm saying that. I have to learn Instagram. I'm that old, right? But there's the handle that we have. Follow us, check us out, see what we're about. I can tell you that we're going to be very active on social media. So start following us, start seeing what we're doing, be active there, because not only will we be active, but our alums are going to be active. Our partners in employment are going to be active. So it's a great place to kind of see information as we get it. Okay. I know we have like a minute or two left. Questions that we can address, and if not, we can certainly start a Google Doc and answer those questions and then send those out to everyone so they will be addressed. But are there any questions in the chat, Melissa, that we can address quick or no?
I think we've gotten everything in the chat, so we can hang back a couple of minutes. If there are any other questions you have, feel free to either unmute or go ahead and pop something in the chat and we can address that.
All right. Thanks.
While we're waiting on questions, just one last pro tip as you all are getting ready to head into some recruiting seasons, especially as you're actively networking, make sure to set up your voicemail with a professional outgoing message, and also answer the phone in a professional way anytime you're getting a call from a number that you don't recognize, especially now in this virtual world. Sometimes recruiters, alums are just picking up the phone and calling people. So those are just two little things that can really help make things a lot easier for you. So set up your voicemail and answer the phone professionally.
Thank you for that.
Oh, and then I did see a question from Zach. To what extent is Excel experience a necessity prior to your junior summer internship? Excel is going to be really important in whatever business internship that you are doing. In the technical interview process, you're not doing the actual modeling in Excel, but they are probably going to ask you about your experience with Excel. So highly recommend doing some training on it, making sure that you're using it in either group projects. We can share some resources on that, but you will want to be pretty familiar with Excel prior to that junior year internship, just so that you're ready to hit the ground running when you start.
Yep. Asynchronous class happening for modeling with Excel. There's third-party venues that are also doing that. So please use those tools and resources wisely and to your advantage. Very good point. Good question.
Any other questions?
Excellent. Okay. Well, with that, I want to give you your evening back to go forward and conquer and do whatever you need to do to wrap up your night. Thank you so much for taking the time out to just listen to this. It was a lot of information. The session's been recorded. We will make sure we send that recording out. If you have questions, reach out to us. We'll make sure that we can get them answered in a way that's timely and also informative to you. I thank you again for your time. I understand that it is yours, and I appreciate you spending it with us. If you have questions, reach out. If not, feel free to go about your evening. Have a great night.